Hello and welcome back to Project Management for Beginners or Project Management 101. If you are just joining us for the first time, welcome. So excited to have you here. I would recommend you pop down to part 1 and part 2 of our series where we talk through the basics of project management, how it can help you through your work, and also go over the all-important timeline mapping piece, which is really pivotal for the information that we're going to be covering today in part 3, which is project management tracker creation. And if you've been with us since part 1 and part 2, you will have noticed that I made a very silly mistake at the end of my last video where I labeled this as step 4. It is actually step 3, which I've now corrected. So if you caught that, thank you so much. But today we are going to talk through project management creation, all the different ways that you can utilize a tracker, and why it is so vital to a project's success. So we are so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining. Again, this is an entirely free course on project management. My name is Erica, and I'm the founder of Anyone Can Project Manage, and this is all the information that I have learned in my 6+ years project managing for nonprofits, for governments, and for consulting. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Of course, if you have found the course useful or entertaining or anything like that, please don't forget to like and subscribe. This really helps me with being able to keep these courses free so that I can share all the information with all of you. So let's go ahead and get started. In terms of project management, I know last time we talked about timeline mapping and going through all the different components of the puzzle piece to essentially understand how do they all fit together. And I have a free worksheet on my website that you're able to download and utilize to fill out all the different questions and all the different parts. So you have all the information that you need in one area. And once you have all this information, what do we do with it, right? So we are going to put it together into a tracker that you can utilize, that your supervisor can pop into, that you can also show to leadership or partners, essentially anyone who wants to get an understanding of where the project is at. You can very quickly show them that, and they'll get a good rundown and a good idea of where things are at for your project. So the first thing that I'm going to do is actually run through a few of the different tools and options that are available to you, and some of these are paid, some of these are free, and I'm going to go over these pretty briefly. So if you're interested in a more in-depth view on each of these tool options, please check out my other videos. I actually go through each of them and I create a sample template of the tracker so you can see how each of these different tools and softwares work. The first one, which is you may be in an organization that is utilizing Microsoft Teams, and they actually have a built-in project management tracker tool. And it's really good if you're a visual person and really like that visual organization, but it can be clunky to keep organized. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more, please go ahead and check out my other videos specific on Microsoft Teams. The next one that you can utilize is Google Sheets, and you just need to have a Google email account to access their Google Sheets. So it is a free option and tool, and it's really easy and intuitive to use. Unfortunately, there's less customization and detail, but for beginner project managers, this is actually a really easy tool to kind of get your feet wet and really understand, what are all the different options around there. So that's probably, my recommendation if you're just starting out and really want to play around. Of course, kind of the partner to Google Sheets is Microsoft's Excel. Now you have to pay for Excel. If you're working for an organization and they have Excel or Microsoft Suite for you, that is great. Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel are very, very similar. You can customize and streamline both in a way to keep track of projects. Now, Excel isn't as visually as beautiful, but there are a lot more tools and nuances that you can work with in Excel. So moving on, we've got a option called Asana. It is a paid software, and this is a very focused project management software, and it's often used by smaller organizations that might not need, the enormous capability that Microsoft Teams gives, and it's often also a cheaper alternative. So if you're working in a smaller organization, this might be the tool that folks share with you and say, hey, we want you to manage all of our projects utilizing Asana. So if you're interested in learning in more detail about any of these tool options, please go ahead and check out my other videos. I will walk through all of these tools in depth, and I'll create a template so that you're able to see just how everything breaks down. And of course, there are so many other project management softwares out there as well. Monday.com, Smartsheets, it really with how many different choices out there. I can't cover them all, but I am going to go in depth on in this next section here to walk you through what a basic project management tracker should include and entail to make sure that you're able to manage a project successfully. So moving into tracker creation, right? The biggest question really is, what information do we actually need to include? What information is going to be helpful for you when you're managing a project, and for your manager or supervisor or leadership or even teammates, internal and external, to take a look at and pop in if they're interested to see where that project is at. So the first thing that you need to do is ensure that you've got a section or a column or some way to track your project streams. So depending on the size of your project that you're managing, there might actually be multiple work streams. So you might have a column that says, this is the main name of the big work stream, and then underneath you've broken it down into several different parts. And this is going to be, really, really helpful if you've already gone through part 2 and written down what the deliverables are for all of your different projects in the larger project that you're managing. If you haven't done that yet, I would really, really encourage you to sit down and take a moment to gather all the information that you need. And I have a free worksheet template that you can utilize on my website that I'll make sure is linked below. The next part that you'll make sure you want to include somewhere on your tracker is an action item, a way to track all the different action items that you have. And this is really important because even though you have your larger deliverable, right, let's say a report or a slide deck or something like that, you want to make sure that you're able to track the individual tasks as well that has to be completed as part of the larger work stream. And that is going to be really, really helpful for you so that you can see, oh, this one action item has been checked off, or this second action item is still in the works. And I would encourage you, as much as you can, break down each of the larger projects into smaller bite-sized pieces so that you can have an action item column. And of course, next to that action item, you're going to want to include a deadline when the action item is due. And the date can vary, the date can change, but it's good to have that in there just so that you're aware of what date that your team is working towards. And if you get any questions or there are any discrepancies and concerns or clarifications from the team that's needed, you can go back and say, hey, we all agreed on this date, or this is the date that I have jotted down as our deadline. And of course, you can always change it, but it's good to have a concrete date to work towards. And the next thing to include, which is very, very important, I would encourage you to always have a assigned role. And this is just who or who all is in charge of an action item. Maybe it's an individual person, maybe it's two people, maybe it's a specific team, but it's always good to note whose responsibility an action item for who is responsible for an action item, so that you can go back to them and ask, hey, can I get an update or a status report on where this action item is. And it can really help you when you're taking a look to see maybe if a team is falling behind or struggling with deadlines or meeting some challenges that you can adjust accordingly. And the next part, which, can be optional, but I sometimes opt to include it in, as priority level. And it is helpful to see which action items need to be prioritized or which ones can wait. For a smaller project, this is probably not needed, but for a larger project, I would definitely encourage having a column there so that you can note this is high priority, this is low priority. That way, if, timelines get tight and you need to be able to prioritize, you can easily take a look at this tracker of yours and say, okay, I see that these 3 items are most priority, so I'm going to work on those first, and I can wait on, the last 2 because they're not as high priority. And that really helps with managing your stress levels, managing your team's stress levels, and also conveying to your supervisor or leadership where things are at and going to them and saying, I have a plan of, even though our timeline is tight, I know that these are the priority items that I need to work on, and we'll make sure to get to the rest of the lower priority items soon. And finally, you'll want to have a status and note section. And this is really good for if there are any miscellaneous details that come up that you want to note. If you had a meeting and someone said something important about an action item or a work stream, you can note that as well. And of course, you can tailor this section to what works best for you, but I would definitely highly encourage just having a section where you can add these notes in. And of course, this is a basic tracker and a basic what to include. If you're interested in, a more in-depth, if you've got a more complicated project and you're interested in maybe how to lay that out and the best way to track it, please visit my other videos. I will make sure that they are linked so that you can click on them and view them. But with that brings us to our last and final step, although a very, very big step, which is project management implementation. You have all of your pieces together, you've created your tracker, and now the work actually begins of keeping your tracker updated and ensuring that your project is moving along smoothly. So please go ahead and join us next time for step 4, project management implementation. And we'll go ahead and see you in part 4.